I've heard some people say that the job of a firefighter is long periods of boredom with short intervals of extreme terror. I guess that could be said for other professions as well. I don't know if I agree with that or not. My name is Barry. I put out fires. I love my job. I have been doing it for 7 years at the time I started my story and have never wanted to do anything else. My wife Marcy and I met in 2nd grade and have been inseparable since high school. She works as a graphic designer. How can she hate my job and constantly worry about me when I keep telling her that with the training and equipment we are given, there is very little chance of anything happening on the job? Her best high school friend, besides me, is Alice Phillips. Alice writes songs and poems. Alice is always writing about love and caring. Her creativity amazes me. Her twin brother, Fred, uses mostly her songs in his band. They are slowly making a name for themselves. Alice managed to get Marcy to do some illustrations for the cover of the first CD the band is going to release early next year. The band calls themselves Freddie Phillips and the Greasy Finger Mechanics. They do almost decent work, but I can't say they're very good. They recently got a contract just because of Alice's songs. Fred and I were in the same class. Some people are badasses, and Fred was one of them. He was always bragging about his sexual escapades, most of which never materialized. He was just a talker, but with no business as far as we were concerned. His only conquest, sort of, was the preacher's daughter. He managed to get a pair of her underwear during a date. She was too skinny and ugly to get many dates, and smart as a box of hair. The next week, her father took them back, and then blabbed that Fred had taken them off the clothes line. Fred showed his trophies, and they weren't clean. We're inclined to believe him on this one. Marcy was invited to a recording session to show the producers her work. When she got there, the backup singer was sick and didn't show up. Marcy was asked if she could fill in for her. All she had to do was moan during one song and scream like a cat. She did so well that they wanted to hire her and let the other girl go. I told her no. We argued about it for over a month. The day before the 3-month tour started, she told me, "She's leaving. Alice and I are going to share a room and I'll be fine. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I was still saying I didn't want her to go. I told her I was worried about Fred's reputation. She called me jealous. The next morning when I got home from work, she was gone. The note said she would call every night. She never explained why she had to run away. She just avoided the subject when we talked. If I brought it up, she changed the subject. She was true to her word and called every day for the first month or so. Then she started missing a day here and there. After the 10th missed day, I called Alice and asked what they were doing that was so important that Marcy hadn't called me. Alice said she had no idea. She had been in Nashville since the 2nd week of the tour. I called Marcy and left some messages for her to call me. Marcy called the next night and, judging by her voice, was a little drunk. She denied receiving any messages from me. I told her it was time to go home. She yelled at me that I was trying to stifle her ambition and then hung up. I didn't hear from her for 3 days. I took a week's vacation from work and flew to where they were next scheduled to perform. When I showed up at the arena, I was told I wasn't on the list to be let in. Marcy wasn't answering her cell phone either. When they called him, Fred came out and looked at me. He said he didn't know who I was. The police came and escorted me out. I recorded most of what happened with a digital camera I had hanging around my neck. I called Alice and informed her of the situation. She called the producers, and they sent an order to let me backstage. By then, the show was over, when I was escorted into the band's dressing room. Marcy was so out of it she didn't recognize me. Marcy was topless. She offered me some amazing sex. I managed to film that, too. I got a good look at all the hickeys on her neck and breasts. Fred smirked. I said, "No thanks," and left. I left town on the next plane out of town. The tour ended after a few weeks. The band went back home. They all looked like shit. They blamed it on fatigue, but I knew better. Marcy came home that day and found that the door locks had been changed. When she called at 2 in the afternoon, I let her in. She sat down on the couch and fell asleep. When I returned from work the next morning, she was still asleep. In the evening, she slept until 6. I had to be at work at 9. The next morning, when I got home from work, she looked almost human again. I told her we needed to talk. She had some explaining to do. I showed her the videotape of me not being allowed on the show and waited for an explanation. "I'm sure Fred was just kidding. He never mentioned you were there." I showed her a list of all the times I had called her and left a message. She only shrugged. "I never got them. If you want to be married to me, you're done with the band. Give me one good reason why I should leave." "I don't like your behavior since you broke up with him." "What's not to like about my behavior?" I turned on a videotape of her in the dressing room. She saw Fred smirking and grimaced. "That's not me. Who gave you that video?" At that moment, the camera was turned toward me, and she saw tears streaming down my face in the video. "You will go to rehab, we will go to counseling, or the marriage will be dissolved. You were drugged, and that's the only reason you got this one chance." In response, she stared at me until the doorbell rang and Alice entered the house. Alice had already seen all the evidence of Marcy's time on tour. She was so furious you wouldn't believe it. They sat in the kitchen the rest of the morning discussing all the things Marcy had done on tour. I overheard a few comments, and I didn't like what was said. Much later, when Marcy finally came out and wanted to apologize to me, I was gone. Every time she tried to call me, I answered, "Rehab and counseling." Then I would hang up. Finally, I turned off the phone to sleep. I spent the night at the station that day. I left instructions not to be disturbed. Marcy came by twice, and each time she was told I was gone. I was back on duty about an hour later when a call came in for a fire. I knew the address well. It was Fred's house where the group was staying. When we arrived, there was a report of someone trapped in a bedroom on the second floor. We put a ladder up to the window, and I climbed up to see what was in there. Alice was passed out, leaning against the window frame. I reported that I had found someone, hoisted her onto my shoulder, and started to make my way to the window when I saw 2 tiny kittens jump onto the windowsill. I picked them up, put them in my raincoat, and headed downstairs. I was halfway downstairs when there was a shout and an instruction. Looking up, I saw that Marcy had climbed out of the window and was heading down the stairs. I shouted to her to hurry up. I handed the kittens and Alice to the others and headed back to help Marcy down. Just as I reached her, there was a loud bang. She collapsed in my arms, and I headed back downstairs. My ears were ringing and my head hurt badly from the concussion. I handed her off to the others before I saw blood on my gear. Something from the exploded gas canister had punctured her neck, and she was bleeding badly. I realized this was bad. The captain came over and removed me from the kill zone. She died before reaching the hospital. I know the crew did everything they could to save Marcy. The autopsy showed that Marcy died from blood loss. She had varying amounts of cocaine and other drugs in her system. Also, she was 2 months pregnant, and it wasn't my pregnancy. Alice and the kittens got smoke inhalation, but they would be okay in time. The rest of the group died in the fire. The drugs in her system were found in fairly small amounts, and they were sure she hadn't taken any since her return. The fire marshal determined that the fire was started by careless drug use and that all members of the band except Marcy had died before we arrived. The group was cremated and placed in a single urn for burial at sea. The tragedy that befell the group caused a dramatic drop in sales. Marcy was buried in the family plot the following week. Only her parents, Alice and I, attended the funeral. Alice and I were allowed to foster 2 kittens after the shelter determined they were healthy. I took the gray, long-haired kitty and named her Smokey. Alice got an orange tabby with lightning flash markings on her left side. She named her Flash. Before returning to work, I had to undergo stress management. After 3 months, I was allowed to return. For several years, I was not allowed to climb ladders. Just over 7 months after the fire, Alice and I were summoned to court to decide the division of the band's assets. The producers and record company had already taken their share, with $3.7 million left. The court decided that since the band died before Marcy, she should inherit the rest of the money. The contract was set up so that each deceased person passed their share of the money to the remaining members. As her husband, I was next in line after her death. Alice received only royalties from her songs. She received title to the land on which the house stood because she and her brother inherited it after their parents died. Alice returned to Nashville and continued to write music. She was nominated for 3 Grammys one year and 2 the next. Her songs became highly sought after. We wrote and called each other often. That year at Christmas, she came into town unexpectedly to see me. She personally dropped off my gift on Christmas morning. When I returned from work, I found her in my living room with a beautiful Dalmatian puppy in a big red bow, whom I immediately named Stripey. Smokey had done everything she could to raise the puppy the way she wanted. For the next 2 weeks, Alice lived in my guest bedroom. We both wanted to support something important with money from the band. In the end, we decided to fund a drug rehabilitation program and community outreach. These programs were organized in conjunction with the local university's teaching hospital. I donated half of the proceeds from the band, which now totaled over $5 million. Alice donated all of her profits from their music to the cause. She also donated her lot to the city for use as open land. We spent a lot of time together during the 5 years she spent in Nashville. We wrote emails, called, sent each other cards and letters. Over the years, I noticed that I missed her more and more when we were apart. Finally, on Valentine's Day, I sent her a regular card and roses like I did when we couldn't be together. She called my cell phone and we were talking when I heard her doorbell ringing in the receiver. She ignored the call and we continued talking. The call came again. She ignored it again. On the 3rd ring, I asked if her doorbell was ringing. "Yes, I'm going to ignore it," she replied. "I don't think you got everything I sent. You should go and answer it." When the door opened, Alice was shocked to the core to see me in a tuxedo, on my knee, with a couple dozen roses in my left hand. In my right hand was a small, blue box. "Alice, I love you with all my heart. Please become my wife." Good thing I was downstairs. She slowly collapsed down like a pile of rocks. I managed to pick her up and carry her to the couch. When she came to her senses, she looked at me in surprise, as if she didn't understand what I had said or why I was here. I took her hand and repeated my question. She shook her head to clarify. When the words reached her, a smile slowly blossomed on her face. She wrapped her arms around my neck and cried. Playing dumb, I asked, "Is the answer yes or no?" The answer sounded almost with a sigh. "Yes." We kissed for the first time. We hugged and kissed each other on the cheek, but never as lovers. "You have an hour to get dressed. We have dinner reservations." The second surprise that evening was when we rounded the corner into a private dining room, and it was full of friends she had made back in the city. There were the famous, the infamous, and just regular people. I had 2 speeches prepared. Luckily, I was able to use the short one. I raised her hand and said, "She said, yes." The applause was deafening. The celebration dragged on until the wee hours of the morning. She was happy, but seemed a little preoccupied all evening. As we were taking a cab home, she said, "We have a lot to talk about tomorrow." Then she smiled and kissed me. The next day, I found Alice making a list of topics she wanted to discuss. She didn't want to miss anything important. I made dinner for the 2 of us, and she continued to write and think. After dinner, we sat down at the table to start talking. "If we have to break up because of this, I'm sorry. There are some things you need to know before we get married. I can't keep this to myself and live with you every day." "First of all," she said, "I want you to know that I've loved you longer than Marcy. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to cause problems where there shouldn't be any. You've been the inspiration for a lot of my songs." I was stunned to hear her say that. I remained silent and let her continue. "Secondly, I am truly sorry that Marcy died the way she did. You lost your wife. I hope she would have been your life partner, and I lost my best friend that day. We went to her house that day to get her things and let the group know she was leaving. When we got there, everyone was so high that they couldn't hear anything we were saying. It was like talking to a wall. While we were getting her stuff, smoke started coming up the stairs, and I called the fire department. I still have the letter she wrote to you that day. I was supposed to give it to you the next morning when I returned after taking her to rehab. I never opened it. I have no idea what it says. I nodded as she continued. She told me about the tour and why things worked out the way they did. My brother lied to Marcy when he told her we were going to be roommates. He knew I would only be there for the first week. For the first 5 weeks, she had her own private room wherever they went. After I left, she started feeling weird in the mornings. She wasn't sick or anything, she was just out of sorts. After the group ate lunch every day, she always got better. She started eating breakfast on her own, but it didn't help, so it wasn't about hunger. Soon she didn't feel better even after lunch. She suspected that something they were giving her had drugs in it. Finally, Freddie told her bluntly that she was hooked, and the only way to get relief was to have sex with him, and he would give her what she needed to feel better. To prove it, he gave her that shit. When she passed out, because the dose was stronger than she was used to, someone or someones raped her. She was afraid to tell anyone anything because she had no proof. Fred had convinced her of that. Marcy was to be their personal sex toy. Anything they wanted, she was to give them. Yes, every member of the group. They always gave her drugs after gigs. Now was as good a time as any for her to conceive from rape. By this time, I was beyond furious. I had no idea what was going on, or I would have stopped all of this and helped her press charges against the whole damn band. Again, I'm really sorry this all happened. I stood up and walked out onto the balcony. It was cold, windy, and rainy outside. I was wearing pants and a light shirt and nothing else. I didn't notice anything else. After a while, Alice brought me a blanket to wrap myself in and slippers to put on my feet. I just sat there, cold and miserable, immersed in my thoughts. I think it was almost 2 hours later when I walked in on her again. She asked me to hold her. We kissed and cried. "Are we still okay? That was the worst." I couldn't bring myself to speak. I just shrugged and cried. We hugged each other forever. I guess that's just the way it was. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with my head in her lap, tears in my eyes. We started where we had ended the night before. As long as I was able to escape after a while, I was able to live with the information I just told you. I never wanted to hurt you the way I'm hurting you now. I lived with it for a long time. As much as it hurt you to hear it, it was just as well for me to let it go. It was impossible to do that without being honest. And I can see that honesty hurt you deeply. I am truly sorry for hurting you again. I remained silent. You were tossing and turning all night last night. You growled and moaned and cried. Each time you cried, I only held you tighter to me. Please, I need to hear you say that everything will be okay when it's over. Do you still love me? I gasped and said quietly, I still love you. I had no idea what you were going through. I wasn't sure I wasn't going to make a big fool of myself when I came here to see you. We kissed and cried and held on for dear life. Then we both got up and headed for the kitchen and bathroom. She started to make coffee. I told her she could skip that if she wanted. She stopped. Can I continue with this? I'd like to finish this while I still have the chance. I pointed out to her that she should continue. I'm sorry that the words I had to say to you hurt you so much. When we are done, remind me to give you her letter. I feel 10 years younger after sharing it with you last night. I have loved you far longer than you can imagine, and I will not hurt you so much unless necessary. I believe Marcy loved you just as much. I know we were always good friends with a mutual love for her, but I'm never going to replace her in your heart. I would love to live next to her. When I found you at the door, it was the best and worst thing that ever happened in my life. I knew there was sympathy between us, and I hoped it would grow into something beautiful. I just wasn't expecting it that night. You are a wonderful and caring person. I love you with all my heart. I finally spoke up. I suspected a lot of what you said. The pain has lessened over time, but I still miss her often. I only came to see you when I realized I missed you even more. Marcy will always be a part of me and you. We have to find a special way to keep her in our lives. It has to be a happy way, and we don't have to dwell on her all the time. I'm finally ready to be with someone again, and that person I choose is you. Up until a few months ago, I was not ready for the information you gave me today. Honestly, I didn't realize you knew as much as you do. I love you deeply, and I want to make you my new life partner when you are ready. I've always been ready, dear sweet man. We hugged and kissed for a very long time. I was beginning to really like it. Then there was a loud rumble that seemed to shake the foundation of the building. She blushed and said we needed to eat. After eating, she brought me a letter and I took it out to the balcony. The weather had improved dramatically. The sun was peeking out, the world was drying out, and the temperature was 43 degrees. I just sat there for a while, holding the latest communication from Marcy. I was almost scared to read it. Alice tapped on the glass to see if I needed anything. I indicated that I wanted her to come out. She sat down next to me and took my hand. I asked, "Would you mind reading the letter to yourself? I just want to know if she still loves me and wants to remain my wife." I don't need to read the letter to answer that question. The answer to all questions is yes. Marcy and I have had many conversations about it. This letter is a private matter between the two of you. If you want me to read it after you, I will, but reluctantly. I told her, "Today is about us. I don't want to do anything that would take away from our joy. I've been waiting for years to receive this letter I didn't even know existed. A few more days won't hurt. I will read it when I have time to prepare." I put the letter in my luggage. When I read the letter, it contained everything as she had promised. I was finally able to join my life with Marcy. The wedding took place on the first Saturday in October. At Alice's insistence, the ceremony was small. She had no real family left. My mother supported her, and my father supported me. They still, to this day, talk about the party we threw that night. Hotels and motels for miles around were filled with friends from Nashville. Tour buses and limousines drove all over town. Inside the door was a large wooden barrel for wedding gifts and cards. We asked for donations to be given to a center for addicts rather than spending the money on us. We had everything we could possibly need. 5 large companies offered to give 20% each of the total donations. They were very surprised to learn that they would have to donate $375 million. They all happily agreed to increase the donation amount to $1 million each. This brought the total amount to just over $8.75 million. In addition, Alyssa and I donated another $1 million. Donations started at $1 and further increased to mind-boggling amounts. 4 different bands pledged to play concerts to raise funds for the facility. For months, we were busy writing thank you notes to everyone. The weather that evening was exceptional. The orchestra was beautiful. Several well-known country bands played short sets during the breaks. They performed only songs written by Alice. As they performed, she explained what she was thinking when she wrote them. All but one of the songs were written about me or inspired by how much she loved me. I was amazed by her love for me. I only hope I can return the favor. The only song that wasn't inspired by me was the last one. We danced to it. When it was over, she explained that she had written it for Marcy after she died. In our 33 years, we both felt we were on top of the world. That evening, we were too tired to do anything. We went straight home and fell asleep in our new bedroom, in the addition I had made to the old house. The old lady, as we called our house, had too many good memories to start over. We wanted to find a new place to cement our love. The next morning, we did just that. After lying in each other's arms all night, we made slow, wonderful love, the likes of which I had never experienced. Alice came into our bed a virgin. That day she said she could only make love with the man she loved. How could I be so lucky? My wedding gift from Alice was a signed copy of each of her poetry books with notes of her thoughts on each page. I continue to put out fires. She continues to write songs. Many of them are sought after by artists of all kinds of music. I hate the word genre, so I won't use it. We made up for lost time and now have 6 children. Alice and Fred were twins, and we had 2 sets of our own. My friends at the station banter with me, saying you have to do it twice a night to have twins. I tell them we could make love 3 times a night and have triplets to shut them up. Each of our 4 girls has the same middle name, Marcy. We kept our promise. 2 of the boys have the middle name William, in honor of both of our fathers. You didn't think we'd use Fred, did you? Stripe, Smokey, and Flash also lived long, loving lives, living to a ripe old age. We still have pets from each of their last litters.